You know, sometimes history turns on a single moment. And in this case, it started with a sound, a faint, simple signal coming from the absolute blackness of space, a beep that would literally echo through history and change the entire course of the 20th century. This is the story of that beep.
So picture this. It's October 4th, 1957. The Cold War is absolutely freezing over. And all across the planet, from these high-tech government listening posts to just regular folks with ham radios in their backyards, people are tuning in, trying to hear the future.
And then they heard it. Beep, beep, beep. That was it. The world's first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, was circling the entire globe every 96 minutes. This tiny, polished sphere was sending a message that anybody could understand, even if they had no idea what it really meant. Yet.
Now you've got to imagine the reaction here. It was completely split. On one hand, it was just pure wonder, right? Humanity had finally done it. We'd reached for the stars. But on the other hand, it was deeply, deeply frightening. Because if the Soviets could put a satellite right over your head, you had to ask yourself, what else could they put up there?
So here's the big question. How did this, an 83-kilogram metal ball with not much more than a simple radio inside, manage to kick off a technological arms race, completely reshape global politics, and start the incredible journey to the moon? Well, to get that, we've got to rewind a bit.
To really get Sputnik, you have to get the Cold War. This was not some friendly competition. We're talking about an intense rivalry, ideological, political, military, between the United States and the Soviet Union. And space was about to become the main event.
The starting gun really fired in the summer of 1955. The U.S. makes this big public announcement about its satellite plans. And then, bam, just 4 days later, the Soviets come out and say, hey, us too. Within a week, their project was officially greenlit. The race was on. But here's the thing. Inside the Soviet program, there was a major problem. Their first plan for a satellite was huge, super ambitious, but it was also incredibly complicated and was falling way behind schedule. That fear, the fear that America would get there first, led to a really brilliant change in strategy.
And this side just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you've got Object D, basically a giant flying laboratory. Then on the right, Object PS, the simple solution. The Soviets had a realization. Being first was way more important than having the most advanced science experiment, so they went for speed.
The name really says it all. Prostейший Sputnik, which just means elementary satellite. It was totally stripped down, a lightweight sphere designed to do one thing and one thing only: get into orbit and beep, telling the whole world it was there before anyone else. That decision, that was the key to victory.
Okay, so what was actually inside this elementary satellite? Let's pop the hood, so to speak, and look at the beautiful simplicity of the hardware and then the raw, terrifying power of the rocket that launched it into history.
So here's a peek inside that famous sphere. It wasn't packed with all sorts of crazy sensors. Nope, it was basically just a power source, 3 big silver zinc batteries, and a simple radio transmitter. Its main job was just to survive and to beep.
And the numbers really drive home just how simple this thing was. We're talking 23 inches in diameter, about the size of a beach ball, and only 184 pounds. You could almost wrap your arms around it. Its most noticeable features were those 4 long antennas, designed to spray that signal all across the planet.
But, even a small payload like that needs a heck of a push to get into orbit. And this was the muscle that did it, the R-7 Semyorka. This thing was an absolute beast, a marvel of engineering, a multi-stage rocket totally unlike anything the world had ever seen.
And here is the kicker. The R-7 was not designed for peaceful exploration. It was an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM. Its real purpose was to hurl a nuclear warhead from one continent to another. And suddenly, that little beep from space wasn't just a science experiment anymore. It was proof that the Soviets had a rocket that could reach any city on Earth.
All right, before we get to the launch, just a quick, cool little fact about the name. The word Sputnik in Russian beautifully translates to fellow traveler. It's kind of a poetic name for humanity's first little companion on our journey through the stars.
And so, the stage is set. October 4th, 1957. From a top-secret launch site deep in the Soviet Union, the R-7 rocket roared to life. It just climbed and climbed, a pillar of fire carrying its small, polished passenger up into the great unknown. And the mission was a phenomenal success. For 3 solid weeks, Sputnik just kept beeping its way around the globe at 18,000 miles an hour. It completed over 1,400 orbits before it finally fell silent. It stayed up there for 3 whole months before its fiery final plunge back to Earth.
So now, let's get back to the real impact of that beep. The launch sent a massive political and psychological shockwave around the globe. And let me tell you, nowhere was it felt more strongly than in the United States.
This quote just nails it. This was the Sputnik crisis. Overnight, the entire narrative of American technological superiority, it was just shattered. This was a huge blow to national confidence. It created this sense of panic, of real fear. So, America's response was fast, and at first, a total disaster. The failure of their Vanguard rocket in December '57 was a national humiliation, and it happened on live TV for everyone to see. But that failure, man, it lit a fire. Just a month later, the U.S. gets its own satellite, Explorer-1, into orbit. And by that summer, America had created 2 of the most powerful science agencies in history, ARPA, which later becomes DARPA, and of course, NASA. So when you really step back and look at it, Sputnik's legacy is just immense. It directly kicked off the race to the moon, it led to this huge push for science and tech education in schools, and it gave us agencies that are still innovating today. In fact, the GPS in your phone can trace its origins all the way back to the scientists who were figuring out how to track Sputnik's orbit. In the end, this simple metal sphere became one of the most powerful symbols of the entire 20th century. It wasn't just a machine. It was a wake-up call, it was a challenge, and it was the starting pistol for humanity's greatest adventure.
And that leaves us with one big thought, doesn't it? Sputnik was this technological surprise that just changed everything almost overnight. It really makes you wonder, what's next? What's going to be the Sputnik moment of our time? What's that unexpected signal from the future that's going to change everything for us?